A lone spacecraft, Stellar 13, glided through the dark abyss, approaching the abandoned station Echo 7. The crew of 5 sat in tense silence as the station loomed ahead. A floating relic lost to time. Dr. Alex Carter, the mission scientist, checked his wrist pad for the 1,000th time, scanning over old mission logs. 20 years ago, every crew member on Echo 7 had vanished. No distress signal. No bodies. Just silence. Now, their team was here to retrieve the research data and uncover the truth. LT Sarah Voss, the pilot, broke the silence. Final approach. Latching in 543, a metallic clank echoed through the hull as the docking arms engaged. The ship trembled slightly before stabilizing. Mark Ruiz, the engineer, sighed, unstrapping himself. Well, we're still alive. That's a good start. Samir Khan, the medical officer, forced a smirk. Let's hope we stay that way. The airlock hissed open, revealing the station's dark interior. Emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows on the walls. The corridors stretched ahead, lifeless and cold, as if time had stopped the day the crew vanished. Olivia Tran, the communications expert, activated her handheld scanner. Oxygen levels stable. But... She hesitated. There's interference. Like something is distorting the signals. Mark scoffed. Maybe 20 years of dust? Reed. They stepped inside, boots echoing against the metal floor. The walls were lined with fractured monitors, frozen on static. The doors bore the scratches of something or someone trying to get out. Dr. Alex stopped at a control panel, brushing off a layer of frost. He pressed a few buttons, bringing up the last recorded log. The screen flickered, then stabilized. A distorted face appeared. A former crew member, wide-eyed, whispering frantically. Do not trust the voices. It knows we are here. The screen cut to black. Sarah exhaled sharply. Great! That's not creepy at all. Mark forced a laugh. Probably just data corruption. Let's grab what we need and... A sudden noise. A soft thump from somewhere deeper in the station. The crew froze. Samir frowned. Thors. Did you hear that? Olivia tightened her grip on her scanner. Could be debris settling or... Thors. Her voice trailed off as the static on her scanner grew stronger, warping into a series of faint whispers. Dr. Alex checked his tablets. This station has been lifeless for 2 decades. There shouldn't be any movement at all. Sarah unholstered her plasma cutter. Then something is very wrong, Dame. They moved forward cautiously, passing through a dimly lit hallway. The walls seemed to close in, the air thick with an unspoken presence. Mark approached a control panel and reactivated emergency power. Lights flickered on. For a brief second, a shadowy figure stood at the end of the corridor. Then... It was gone. Samir's breath hitched. What the hell was that? Alex's voice was barely a whisper. I don't know, but I don't think we're alone. 4. The dim overhead lights flickered as the crew ventured deeper into Echo 7. The air smelled of stale metal and something faintly rotting, though the station had been lifeless for 20 years. Each footstep echoed unnaturally, like the sound was stretching, bouncing off invisible walls. Mark Ruiz worked on restoring more systems at a wall panel while Sarah Voss scanned the hallway behind them, her grip tightening on the plasma cutter. Something felt wrong. Power's at 30%, Mark muttered, flipping switches. Enough to access the logs. Let's see what the hell happened here. The station's AI system, ARGO, sputtered to life through a nearby terminal, its voice distorted. System compromised. Unknown presence detected. Leave, now. Olivia Tran frowned at the corrupted message. Unknown presence, then reveal. Could be an error. But Dr. Alex Carter shook his head. No, it's a warning. A sudden bang made them all turn. The sound had come from behind a sealed door labeled crew quarters. Sarah stepped forward, tapping the panel. Pressure readings show. Movement inside, Olivia whispered. Samir muttered. The door groaned open. Inside, the room was untouched. Dust floating in zero gravity, personal belongings still arranged, as if waiting for their owners to return. But on one of the beds, a single spacesuit sat upright, facing them. It was empty. A sharp breath from Samir. That's Why is it sitting like that? Mark stepped closer, reaching out. A sudden gust of air burst from the suit's helmet, fogging the visor, as if someone inside had just exhaled. Mark yelped, stumbling back, and the others tensed, watching as the suit tilted slightly forward, its helmet slowly turning toward them. Then, silence. Sarah cursed. I don't like this. We need to move. In for the grain. They backed away, exiting the quarters, but the unease remained. Something was shifting, watching, waiting into the way. They entered the control center, a wide room lined with darkened monitors. Alex accessed the logs, scrolling through the last transmissions. A video flickered to life in room. A disheveled man in a flight suit appeared, Captain Elias Ward, commander of Echo 7. His eyes were sunken, darting frantically. If anyone finds this, we were wrong, and wrote. We shouldn't have studied it. The voices, they're in our heads. They know our fears. They know. A sudden black distortion erupted behind him. The screen glitched, infuriate. The captain's face twisted in terror as something unseen pulled him backward, then static. Olivia swallowed hard. That wasn't a hallucination. Knows fear. If this thing feeds on fear, Alex said, his voice low, then we need to stay calm. No panic. No doubts. Samir's voice cut through, shaken. Guys, where's Mark? They turned, those forts. The engineer was gone. Mark? Sarah called, stepping into the hallway. Silence. She reached for her comm device. Static. No response. Then, a whisper. Sarah, help me. Stat. She spun, eyes scanning the dim corridor. Mark? She called, stepping cautiously forward. The whisper came again, crackling through the comms. Please, it's so dark. A door to the right stood slightly open. The maintenance bay. Heart pounding, Sarah pushed inside. The room was nearly pitch black, save for the faint emergency glow from the floor panels. A row of old spacesuits lined the far wall. Shadows stretched long and unnatural. In one of the suits moved. The helmet tilted. The arms twitched. The visor's reflection showed something inside. Something that wasn't Mark. A low, wet breathing filled the air. Sarah staggered back, slamming the door shut. She ran back to the others, breath sharp. Something's in here with us, and it's... She froze. Standing behind Alex and Olivia was Mark. But something was wrong. His helmet was cracked. His eyes were vacant. His lips moved silently, as if speaking words that made no sound. Alex reached for him. Mark, are you okay? Mark's mouth twisted into a slow, eerie smile. You never left, he whispered. The lights flickered violently, a lacanus. A wave of nausea hit them all, as reality seemed to asterisk glitch. Asterisk. For a split second, the walls flickered into blackness, stretching into infinity, and then, Mark was gone. Olivia let out a choked breath. This place isn't haunted. It's alive. Alex's voice was tight. And it just took Mark. The station rumbled, and ARGO's voice crackled again, urgency clear in its tone. Leave. Now. A heavy silence settled over the group. Mark was gone, Dark sang. No trace of him. No sound. Just the flickering overhead lights and the faint, lingering echo of his last words. You never left. Sarah Voss clenched her jaw, gripping her plasma cutter like a lifeline. Dr. Alex Carter scanned his wristpad frantically, trying to locate Mark's biometrics. Nothing, as if he had never been there at all. We need to find him, Samir Khan said, his voice unsteady. Olivia Tran shook her head. You saw what I saw. That wasn't Mark, or if it was, then something was inside him. A burst of static hissed through Olivia's comm. Then, Mark's voice. Guys, where are you? It's so dark. Please help me. Samir inhaled sharply. That's him! He turned toward the hallway, but Sarah grabbed his arm. Wait, she snapped. It's messing with us. The comms crackled again, but this time, Mark's voice distorted. Stretching, warping, blending into something else. Something inhuman. Then, a sharp scream. It was Mark. The sound came from the lower decks. Alex's face hardened. "We find him! Now!" They moved fast, pushing through the eerie, dim corridors. Live. The station felt different now, like the walls were shifting when they weren't looking, like something unseen was breathing all around them. They reached the lower decks, a maintenance bay filled with tangled wires and broken equipment. The air was thick, suffocating. Then they saw it. Mark? He stood in the middle of the room, his back to them, his helmet missing. His head tilted at an unnatural angle. Samir stepped forward cautiously. "Mark?" Mark's body twitched, slowly. He turned. His eyes were black. His lips moved, but his voice came from the speakers around them instead. "You shouldn't be here." A wave of nausea hit them all as the room flickered, the walls turning into endless blackness for a split second before snapping back. Then Mark lunged. Sarah fired her plasma cutter on instinct. The beam ripped through Mark's chest. For a horrifying moment, his body glitched, shuddering, distorting, flickering between Mark and something else. Then he was gone. No body, no blood, just emptiness. Samir staggered back, shaking. We just... That wasn't Mark, Olivia whispered, her face pale. It was wearing him like a shell. Alex clenched his fists. Whatever took the original crew, it's still here. And now it's hunting us. They ran. The station groaned, as if reacting to their fear. The hallways were wrong now. Doors that should have led to the docking bay now opened into pitch-black voids. Every shadow felt alive. Sarah skidded to a stop at a terminal, trying to override the security lockouts. Olivia turned to Samir. "Check the escape pod status." Samir pulled up the screen. His breath hitched. "It's gone." The words hit like a punch. Alex's voice was quiet. "What do you mean, gone?" Samir turned the screen to face them. "Pod. The only way off this station was missing." Sarah's fingers trembled over the console. "It's keeping us here." The lights surged, and a new voice crackled through the speakers. "Not Mark. Not Argio. Something else. You never left." Then the station plunged into darkness. The lights died. A heavy silence pressed down on them, thick and suffocating. Sarah, Alex, Olivia, and Samir stood frozen in the darkness, their breaths shallow. Then, a whisper. "You never left." Sarah's hand hovered over her plasma cutter. "Stay together. No one moves alone." A flickering red emergency light sputtered on, casting eerie shadows. The station groaned like it was alive. Alex tapped at his wrist pad, his voice tight. "RGO, override blackout protocols!" Tools. The AI's voice crackled through the comms, weak and distorted. "You must leave," Olivia scoffed bitterly. "We'd love to, but the pod is missing." Await him. A low, wet breathing filled the space around them. Sarah turned sharply. The walls rippled, as if something massive was shifting within them. Then, they saw it over. A black, shifting mass crawled along the ceiling, twisting and pulsating, its form flickering between shadow and flesh. Eyes opened within its body. Asterisk, asterisk, too many, too wide, watching them. Samir's voice shook. "That's not possible." The entity dropped. A wave of cold terror crashed into them as it stretched forward, tendrils snaking through the air. Alex grabbed Sarah's arm. "Run!" They bolted down the corridor, the station shifting around them. Doors disappeared. Paths changed. The entity was warping reality itself, keeping them trapped. Sarah skidded into a control room and slammed the door shut behind them. The others stumbled inside, panting, shaking. Olivia's eyes darted around. We need a plan. We can't just keep running." Alex's fingers flew over the control panel, scanning through data. His face paled. "This thing, it's been here since the station was built." He swallowed. "They didn't vanish. They were consumed. Their minds, their memories absorbed." Sarah clenched her jaw. "Then why didn't it take us all at once?" Overs. A new, horrifying realization. Samir whispered, "It's playing with us." A sudden scream. The walls trembled. Thorfi. Samir's body jerked backward, his feet leaving the ground as he was yanked into the darkness. Sarah lunged forward. "Samir!" but he was gone. A deep, distorted laugh rumbled through the speakers. One by one, Olivia stifled a sob, backing against the console. "We have to stop this." Alex's eyes hardened. He pointed at the reactor system. "We overload the core, blow the station. We take this thing with us." Sarah's pulse pounded. "Then let's end this." She hit the console. The countdown began, of minutes, until detonation. And then, the door slid open. The hallway outside was pitch black. And something was waiting. The open door gaped like a mouth, swallowing the dim light from the control room. The hallway beyond was pure black, shifting, breathing. Something was waiting, watching, hunting. Sarah, Alex, and Olivia stood frozen. The reactor countdown ticked down. 4 minutes. "It won't let us go," Olivia whispered. Alex's grip tightened on the console. "More than 8. We don't need to escape. We just need to make sure this thing dies with us." A low, guttural sound echoed from the darkness, a distorted mockery of Samir's voice. "Sarah, why did you leave me?" She swallowed hard, forcing herself to step forward. "You're not him." The shadows twisted. A shape emerged, Samir's body, but his face was wrong. His eyes were hollow, his mouth moving in a slow, stretched grin. "We can all stay forever." The lights flickered. Then, it lunged. Sarah fired her plasma cutter. The beam sliced through Samir's phantom form, but he didn't fall. Instead, he glitched, his body shuddering, stretching unnaturally. Alex grabbed Olivia. "Run!" They bolted, sprinting down the corridor as the station collapsed into chaos around them. The walls warped, turning into endless corridors that led to nowhere. 3 minutes left. The docking bay should have been gone. The pod should have been missing. But as they turned the last corridor, it was there. A single escape pod. Sarah skidded to a stop. "That wasn't there before," Alex hesitated. "It's a trap." The entity's whispers filled the air, crawling inside their minds. "Stay! Stay! Stay!" The walls shook. The shadows closed in. 2 minutes left. Olivia made the choice. She slammed the launch controls. The pod's door hissed open. Sarah grabbed Alex's arm. "Go!" Thord stepped. The hallway behind them collapsed into black void as they dove inside. The door sealed. 1 minute left. Through the viewport, they saw it. Thord stepped. A mass of endless, writhing darkness, shifting into the faces of the lost. Mark, Samir, the old crew. Their voices screamed in unison as the reactor exploded. A blinding light. A deafening silence. The pod drifted into the void. And Echo 7 was gone. The silence was deafening. Sarah, Alex, and Olivia sat in the escape pod, staring through the viewport at the void where Echo 7 had once been. Now, there was nothing. No station. No monster. Thorcentinus. Alex exhaled shakily. "Is it over?" Sarah wasn't sure how to answer. Olivia checked the navigation panel. "Pod's on autocourse to the nearest colony, Thor's time. We'll be picked up in a few hours." A long pause. None of them spoke. Then, a soft tap echoed through the pod. Sarah's breath caught. "Did you hear that?" Another tap. Slow, rhythmic. Coming from outside. Alex's face drained of color. "That's not possible." The three of them turned toward the viewport. For a long moment, there was nothing. Stillness. Just the endless stretch of space. Then, a handprint formed on the glass. A black, shifting handprint, fingers elongated unnaturally, pressing against the viewport, leaving behind a faint, oily residue. A familiar voice, asterisk, asterisk. Mark's voice, asterisk, asterisk, whispered through the pod's radio, distorted and broken. "You never left." The lights flickered, a screen glitched. And the pod continued, drifting into the dark. The air inside the pod grew heavy, thick with an unshakable presence. The handprint on the viewport lingered, its black residue slowly spreading like veins creeping across the glass. Sarah, Alex, and Olivia stared in horror. None of them spoke. None of them breathed. Then a whisper crackled through the radio again. "You never left." Sarah's heart slammed against her ribs. "Shut it off, now!" Olivia's hands shook as she reached for the comm controls. She pressed every button, twisted every dial, but the whisper didn't stop. It only grew louder. Alex swallowed hard, staring at the handprint. The station's gone. We saw it explode. This shouldn't be happening. Sarah's voice was tight. Then why is it? Another tap on the glass. Then another. Then dozens. Handprints spread across the viewport, multiplying, pressing from the other side, as if something asterisk or many things were trying to get in. The whisper turned into a chorus. Mark's voice, Samir's voice, the voices of the lost crew. We never left. Olivia let out a shuddering breath. This isn't real, in our heads. Alex squeezed his eyes shut. We need to focus. We just need to... The lights cut out. The pod was plunged into absolute blackness. Sarah's pulse pounded in her ears. She reached for her plasma cutter, but her fingers brushed against something ice cold. Something that wasn't there before. A hand. She jerked back with a strangled gasp. The whispering stopped. A single voice spoke this time. Not Mark's. Not Samir's. Something else. Open the door, Elias. The darkness around them felt alive, pressing against them, inside them. The walls shrank. The space closed in. And then, the emergency lights flickered back on. The handprints. The handprints were gone. The comm was silent. The pod systems returned to normal, the navigation screen displaying. Approaching Colony Outpost, ETA 15 minutes. For a long moment no one moved. Then Olivia whispered, Did that really happen? Sarah didn't answer. She didn't know. Alex let out a shaky breath. We're almost there. We just have to hold on. The pod continued drifting through space. The colony's beacon light blinked in the distance, growing closer. But Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed, as if a piece of Echo 7 had come with them. She turned toward the viewport one last time and froze. There, in the reflection of the glass, a shadow stood behind her, flatter, watching, smiling. And then, the screen glitched. Static filled the pod, and the whisper returned. You never left.